Well, Nathaniel, now it's time to start fitting all this in here. Now my engines and my frame have got to come up about 8 to 10 inches higher, and you can see that all this turbo is going to hit right in this heater box. Now some people that's done this conversion cut this box out and use this, but I got with diesel conversion specialist, and let me set this out of the way. They sent me out this custom exhaust manifold that relocates that turbo down here below the manifold out of the way of this box. So that's really going to work like a champ. And that's nice. And got taps to take readings on your exhaust. So, yeah, nice piece. So I'm going to put this on here and then start working this back and up and ultimately try to make it to where I can put that mechanical fan back in front of that radiator. Now let me give you a closer look at our relocating manifold for our turbo. So to move that turbo from right up here in the way of everything down low here, and now I'm really starting to get the engine back in here. Now up front here, you can see this is, I did some measuring, this is where my radiator sits in the Bronco, and then I've got to have a shroud, and I've got to have a driver and a pulley. So I've ordered my pulley and driver, hopefully it'll be here on the way, but this is even after moving my engine back from this hole. I don't know if you can see that hole. This hole was in the center, so I've moved it back about an inch. And I may have to move it back a little bit more to get that fan in there. And once I get that factory mechanical fan in there, this thing is going to be sweet. This test fit is really paying off now, because as I'm putting the motor in just to the original spot where the motor mounts are showing, it's wanting to crowd in to where these sensors are in the side of the transmission. And I'm not all the way up in there yet, so it's going to be a real tight fit. So to fix that, I've made a real planned out cut here, and I've cut this piece loose. And I'm going to take this piece and I'm going to bring it over, probably just about one full inch, maybe a little bit more. And then I'll tack weld it back in place. Then I'll take this piece and I'll split it down the middle. And this will be original looking and remove and everything just like it did before. It's just going to be about an inch wider. So I cut that out in a way where it's going to be easily moved. I just clean all that up, grind and weld it, and tack weld all that back in and grind it. And then just fab these two little spots right here. So I went to O'Reilly's and I found this fan clutch that adapts the original 460 fan that was in that shroud, in that radiator up there. It adapts it right to the front of this Cummins engine, and it screws right on to where the fan screwed on to for the Cummins. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and take the clip and set it right back up on here where it goes. And then I'm going to move the motor forward right back into the shroud and locate it. I can raise the motor up a little bit, I can lower it just a little bit as well, and put it right back in the sweet spot of the original fan, and that'll be very nice, good fit, and it'll save us a huge amount of steps and a huge amount of work later on by fitting the motor back to that. So now that I got the engine set in the frame and the frame set back in the truck, and my front clip set on here, it's showing me what I can do between the motor and the radiator and a fan shroud. I'm wanting to use, I used your fan off the 460 back onto this engine, and then I'd like to try to use all forward stuff for the Bronco from there out. It'll make it easier to work on, it'll make it easier to get parts forward, be a good deal. So the 460, the fan location is a little bit to the passenger side of center, and taking that fan blade on this motor is putting it in dead center of the truck, the fan alignment is. So the shroud was made off center a little bit for the 460. So now what I'm going to do is take the fan shroud off, and when I do that I'll be able to get this front end bolted up here where it needs to go. And by the way, my front frame horn that we installed is exactly on the money. I put the original mounts under the front clip on both sides, and my fender and body alignment to the cab is dead on perfect. So that's a good sign right there. So, but once I get all this pulled up and tight after this fan shroud's off, then I've left your motor just sitting in here, and I made a little cross member I can slide back and forth with the transmission. I'm going to move it around in its sweetest spot in relationship to the shroud, in relationship to the cab. I may raise it up a little bit or lower it or something like that, just depending. It's going to give me flexibility to really dial it in a nice spot and then come up with a different shroud. Now, as far as the radiator in relationship to the four-wheel drive frame, the frame on the four-wheel drive is a little bit different. Now, down at the radiator hose, the little radiator hose, this radiator is the original one. It's extremely large big core in it, almost new, looks real nice and clean. I'd love to try to use it, but the lower mount, or the lower outlet there of water is coming out here on the bottom on this side, and your intake is on the bottom on the other side. So I'm gonna have to snake around or get another radiator made or try to get that relocated, and sometimes that can be a mess. So what I'm going to do, since I've got all this set up, I can mock me in and redesign this frame a little bit and put me a place where the hose will just go right up in there, and then I'll put me some fasteners to make it go up under the engine and then inlet in. So I can fabricate and design me a piece for that while this is set in place. And I'll fit everything like that we need to merge together. So I'm going to remove this fan shroud, tighten the body back up over here on this side, and then start moving my engine around. I had to take a quick second to show you this. I took your fan shroud loose, unbolted it, and just spun it around upside down, and you would not believe how close that is. So I'm going to keep that in mind. I may end up using that. It's broken at the end, but I could fiberglass that back in, and you can maybe use the factory one, but we'll see. Now that I got the motor set in there and I've got the body set back on its original body mounts, it tells me how this thing will set in relationship to the transmission tunnel, the fan, the motor, and all that stuff. Now, we discussed putting a little body lift on it, and we'll put as minimum as a body lift as possible, and that's what I'm doing now. So I'm going to simulate a 1-inch lift and see what that does for us, and that may be all we need. I'd hate to go over 1, so I'm going to start at 1. And then if I can do a little cutting and shoving the fit, we'll just leave it there. But I think 1 inch is going to do us a lot of good for that transmission. And then I'll drop that transmission just about 2 degrees, maybe 3, and that's going to help out a little bit more. So let me get this body set, and we'll see where we're at with what we've got right now, and hopefully all that'll work just nice. So let's get it set. One of the things this is working out really good. I've raised your body 1 inch all the way front to rear, and reset all those shims. Then I've lowered the engine down to 4 degrees, and I can probably come back up to 3 degrees, but it's giving me a lot of clearance on the tail shaft of the transmission, and I'll have to put your transfer case in there to kind of see how that's going to work out. It's made the fan actually working really well inside the fan shroud. A little bit of moving around and stuff, and I think I can use this original fan shroud, a little bit of cutting and adjusting on it. And then my depth is really good on my engine. I've moved the engine back just a little bit more, so I'll probably lock the engine down right there. But at this point, I'm going to stop, take a break, and kind of stew over all these numbers to see where I'm at, and if it looks good, and I can't figure any other better way to do this, then I'm going to pull it all back down, and we'll start cleaning some stuff up and making some stuff permanent.